76 of those killed died in the Camp Fire in Northern California.
A candlelight vigil is planned for today to remember those victims. Survivors who lost everything now forced to sleep in makeshift camps.
As I noted, the president joined the state's Democratic leaders. They're normally at odds, but they came together to survey the heartbreaking damage.
Nobody would have ever thought this could have happened. So the federal government is behind you. We're all behind each other. But this is very sad to see it.
Now, the Camp Fire specifically has burned nearly 150,000 acres. It is now, thankfully, 55% contained, but that means obviously a big chunk of it is not contained, and that is the fear at this hour with so many people who are unaccounted for. And I mentioned earlier, the New York Times has a report where they talked to somebody who survived the wildfires, and his home is still standing, and he said that he saw embers the size of basketballs flying through the air, and that's how it jumped and kept blazing.
And when you see this massive devastation, it's just it's actually beyond belief. Some of the images that have been circulating on social media, and you know, we talked last hour to people who had lost their homes. Just you really can't imagine the pain and suffering that goes along with all of this.
And sometimes it's like numbers. When you talk about the national debt, 20 trillion, you can't attach to it. It's hard to attach to 150,000 acres.
Exactly.
It's larger than some states on the East Coast, I think. I was going to check the stats, but I didn't. But it's huge.
Which is what President Trump had said, that he was hearing about all this from Washington, and then he got there and he said, wow, you really need to be on the ground and see it.
And the feel of it. The president made that very clear, trying to patch up some of his tweets last week, frustrated the leaders there. He came in and said, no, I care. I want to take care of this situation. The federal government's going to be there. The aid is going to be there. And it was interesting that Gavin Newsom, the incoming governor, was very praiseworthy in what he said and thankful for the president coming there. And I think they both put aside their differences. They had a handshake and said, we're going to work together on this.
Yeah, now if you go further down California all the way to the southern border, their disagreements might culminate to the top yet again. Because we're covering now what's happening in Tijuana, just south of San Diego, where members of the caravan, a couple thousand of them now, have gathered. They're staying there. Some are attempting to go to ports of entry. Others, we're not quite sure what their next move is. But what we've heard is there are protests and a lot of growing tensions down there as residents of Tijuana say, hey, you may be here wanting to go to the United States, but you're not conducting yourselves very well, and we don't want you here. So we're seeing a clash down in Mexico.
Right, and you're seeing people saying, this is where I live. I'm having trouble navigating around my home. Remember, you know, people who are residents of this area, they don't know who these people are. They don't know anything about them. Imagine you're in your home, you're on your block, you see a bunch of people. You don't know. It can be very confusing. It can be a little bit scary. Obviously, some positive stories coming out as well of people making connections, helping each other out. But it can be a lot of chaos, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, help me understand this, because when the president raised concerns about this before the election, it was it's all about politics, allegedly. B, he's insensitive. C, he's a racist. And now,
D, it's not even real.
Yeah, and it's not a real caravan.
Exactly, it's not happening.
Okay, now the mayor of Tijuana is confirming it's a real caravan. He's confirming that it's a problem. He's confirming he wants $4 million from the Mexican government. This is the mayor of Tijuana, not the president. The mayor of Tijuana saying, I need $4 million to deal with, quote unquote, security and other matters, meaning it's not safe for the residents of his city. So when the mayor of Tijuana says it, it's okay. But when the president of the United States says it, somehow he's a racist. And our affiliate down in San Diego has been doing some fine reporting in Tijuana. And they've talked to residents there who are saying that some, not all, but some of the migrants are actually being ungrateful and saying they're not really thankful for the help that people in Tijuana are trying to give them.
That's right. One of the quotes is from someone who is in Tijuana. My family told me the migrants don't like the food that's being given to them, and they're making a mess everywhere. So I think a lot of people you will welcome a stranger if they come with a grateful heart and they come in peace. But if they come demanding, entitled, and violent, and rioting, and chanting at Border Patrol agents, then you start to step back and say, hold on, wait a minute.
Right.
You want to come into the country? You do so in an orderly way.
So this is
with
our
a
Fox
grateful heart,
affiliate
become
in
a part
San
of this
Diego.
country.
They talked to a resident there who has a relative in Tijuana who's been relaying this information, and that's what we're reporting.
I think it'll be interesting to see if the media narrative switches on this, though. Now that you have the mayor of Tijuana coming out asking for money, obviously this is real. Obviously you see the footage. I'm wondering if they will shift now, acknowledge that this is a real problem, acknowledge that it can be very expensive, and acknowledge that we need to figure out a solution and how to address it.
Maybe. I think they may not acknowledge it until there's a showdown. There was a small showdown on the beach there where they were on top of the fence. Now there's concertina wire on top. Some migrant members have said they want to bum rush the border against border agents. If something like that happens, that might be we don't want that to happen, but it could be.
Cracking down on illegal immigration, one of the big issues confronting the incoming Congress, an issue the President of the United States has been focused on since he was a candidate for that office. And now Democrats have a challenge. They're taking over the House. Will they actually govern, or will they just be throwing rocks? Well, we've heard about these subpoenas they're firing at the president, all the investigations, the taxes they want to raise. And now Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or Congresswoman-elect, from right here in New York, a socialist. She's been out front about that. She wants Medicare for all. She wants so-called free tuition.
We haven't voted before.
So I'm glad that the Congresswoman-elect now knows that there are two branches in the Congress, two chambers, and there are three branches of the government, executive, judicial, and legislative. So she's got that all straightened out.
She also knows that she needs a coalition around her of hard left people like herself if she wants to push this agenda, because there are a lot of moderate Democrats that are very concerned about this hardcore left wing of the Democratic Party and the things that they want to do, because bottom line is a lot of that stuff, they have no idea how they're going to pay for it, and they have no idea how they're going to sell it if they can't explain how they're going to pay for it.
No, and every time she gets asked about it, she gives some foolish answer not grounded in any basic economics.
Just pay for it. Money just appears from
rainbows
somewhere.
and unicorns and pots of gold.
Okay, so the point is Democrats are going to have to govern. Let's see whether they do that or they just throw stones and just push the party further to the left. Down in Florida, they haven't proven they can govern. They haven't proven they can figure out how to handle an election. The Broward County circus continues hours before today's big deadline.
The election supervisor, who is already under intense scrutiny, now admits her office misplaced more than 2,000 ballots.
Yeah, our man who's everywhere all the time, Griff Jenkins, live in front of the office where the ballots are missing. Griff, help us find them.
Where are they, Griff?
Guys, I have no idea, and neither do the officials inside, but they believe they're going to find them. Here's the deal. The 2,000 ballots that are missing are part of the second machine recount that was not submitted because they were 2 minutes late on the deadline. Therefore, they are doing the hand recount yesterday from the original numbers. So while there are 2,000 missing, they're not expected to be a factor in the results that will be reported at noon today, where Governor Scott will defeat Senator Nelson in a narrow margin. Nevertheless, that election supervisor Snipes is still looking for those ballots. Listen.
Somebody must have put their stack in a tray where it didn't belong. The ballots are in this building. There would be nowhere else for them to be.
Now, when those numbers get officially sent in from all 67 counties, it'll be interesting to see whether or not Senator Nelson will concede today or tomorrow before the certification on Tuesday. And speaking of concessions, Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum conceding to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, the now governor-elect, went on Fox last night and was asked, would you consider removing Brenda Snipes as your first move? Here's what he said.
Well, I'm going to take office on January 8th, and, I ran on accountability, and so I urge all your voters to follow my administration closely when I get in.
Now, we will see the officials are in there, maybe some challenges because of these missing ballots, but it's not expected to have any impact on the deadline at noon today, guys.
And for the record, Judge Jeanine has viewers, not voters. I think Congressman, now Governor-elect DeSantis is still in election mode.
There you go.
When he talked about that.
I mean, so this was first reported yesterday during the day. Like, was Brenda Snopes, like, on her hands and knees, sorry, on her hands and knees looking for the ballots yesterday? They're still missing. They're in the building. There's 2,000 ballots. Don't know where they are.
It's amazing.
I mean, and you compare that to previous election cycles.
Yeah, it's amazing. And at first you laugh, but then you get scared. It's actually quite terrifying what's happened.
Yeah, and let me just correct something I said when I said that Florida can't govern itself. I should have said two counties in Florida can't govern itself, because the rest of the state's all right. Yeah. Broward and Palm Beach having trouble. And this is when you have producers of the show who are from Florida, they correct you.
Yeah, there's a bias.
Not the whole state.
No, listen, the nickname is Sloppy Brenda Snipes.
Oh, boy.
You know why she's sloppy? She can't find the ballots. She can't count the ballots. She can't keep the ballots in the right spot.
Look at you
and you
with
always
the
have that friend that has the sloppy homework. So they might have the right answer, but you can't tell because you can't read it.
I feel like once every 3 or 4 shows you can't find your cell phone. You're like, I had my
That
phone.
happens every 3 or 4 hours.
This is a true story. It happens all the time.
That's true, but I'm not in charge of elections in Florida, in a big county that actually matters. So,
nor should she be, by the way.
Absolutely.
Nor should she be.
But Rick Scott's going to win. DeSantis has won, and Andrew Gillum, give him credit. He had a very gracious concession speech, something unlike what Stacey Abrams did and Bill Nelson has yet to do, even though he ain't getting the votes.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. A lot of other news.
Florida, pull it together. More productive in private. Why?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know how many of the many investigations that James Comey conducted as FBI director and in his long career as a prosecutor and investigator that were conducted in public. This is an ongoing investigation, and it's imperative that we talk to each of the witnesses, and we've talked to many witnesses. We've interviewed them under oath with a transcribed interview, and they've been done in private. It is simply not appropriate for Mr. Comey to attempt to turn this into some kind of a public performance on his part, maybe to sell more books. I'm not sure what exactly his motivation is, but he knows that an investigation properly conducted gets testimony from each of the relevant witnesses, and then after that is completed, further action is taken. In our case, we want to complete this investigation, then we'll make all of the transcribed interviews available to the public so that they can see exactly what we've been investigating, but we're not going to have him testify in public so that other people can see him testify, and then suddenly their testimony seems to match up with his.
James Comey wants a grandstand. I'm shocked, Congressman. I wonder, specifically, the way I understand it is you had signaled in private again, as you say, to try to get this investigation completed to Democrats on the panel that you wanted to bring in Comey. Someone, it appears, leaked that and tipped Comey off, which is why he tweeted out, "I'm ready to talk publicly." I raise that question because it makes me wonder, when Democrats take over, do you think they're going to sweep some of this Comey business under the rug?
Well, that's a very serious concern, but that's been their pattern the entire time. Instead of wanting to get at the truth of what happened during the 2016 elections, when two investigations, one of the Hillary Clinton emails and another of the so-called Trump-Russia collusion, were launched, and the FBI, a small group at the head of the FBI, including Director Comey, treated one of these investigations entirely differently, shockingly differently than they did the other. They leaned over backwards to find reasons to not indict Hillary Clinton, and broke all kinds of rules as indicated by the Inspector General's several hundred-page report with regard to the other investigation that had gone the opposite direction.
By the way, Congressman, pardon me, recently
throughout this process.
Recently, we heard that James Comey used Gmail, used private email himself as FBI chief, and may have exposed sensitive information. Might that have clouded his judgment in terms of Hillary Clinton and her private server?
We've heard the same thing, and we have the same question.
Do you have to wrap your investigation in this lame duck Congress in order for it to happen, or can it continue?
Well, certainly I and Chairman Gowdy of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee are leaving office on January 3rd. However, we have already had conversations with Chairman Lindsey Graham of the Senate, who we think will be chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Ron Johnson, who's the chairman of the Senate Oversight Committee, and they are very determined to pick up where we leave off. In addition, we have an Inspector General who is looking into these matters, and we have called for the appointment of a special counsel. So this is not going away. It's going to be brought to a conclusion. But our work is nearing its conclusion, and we want to get these interviews done.
Never have happened, and we'll be having a very full report over the next 2 days, probably Monday or Tuesday.
The State Department insisting no final conclusion has been reached, despite some news reports tying the Saudi crown prince more directly to the murder. The prince has denied any role in Khashoggi's death. Meanwhile, violent protests erupt in Paris. One person dead, more than 200 others hurt. Thousands of protesters stormed the streets, upset over the country's rising fuel taxes. Officers decided to unleash tear gas and use shields to try and control the crowds. Jed?
Well, your favorite big screen princesses are getting a whole new spin in Disney's latest feature, Ralph Breaks the Internet.
I'm a princess, too.
What kind of a princess are you?
Do animals talk to you?
No.
Were you poisoned?
No.
Cursed?
No.
Kidnapped or enslaved?
No. Are you guys okay? Should I call the police?
Do people assume all your problems got solved because a big, strong man showed up?
Yes. What is up with that?
In the new film, Elsa and Sleeping Beauty have their hair down and wear PJs. Snow White has Coke bottle glasses and Cinderella shatters her glass slipper. But our next guest argues this hyper form of feminism doesn't connect with many Americans. Here to weigh in, radio show host and mom of 2 daughters, Kathy Barnett. Kathy, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
What do you think of this backlash against the Disney princesses that I grew up watching? You know, I watched Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and I managed to grow up a self-empowered woman. I'm not a damsel in distress. So what do you make of this backlash?
You know, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the Disney of today is not the Disney you and I grew up with. And many of us tune into these lighthearted forms of entertainment for that very reason. They're light-hearted. They're not meant to be so heavy, right? But, you know, but one of the things I think that this particular company and many multi-billion-dollar companies tend to forget is that my child already has a parent. My child does not need them, nor do we look to them to parent our child, right? I mean, I love Belle from Beauty and the Beast. She's my favorite. Yeah. But Belle will not be the one to teach my daughter how to be a woman. I am my daughter's role model. I will teach my daughter what a strong, confident, and educated woman looks like, not Disney. So I think that they're operating outside of their pay grade, as I often say, and they need to stick with the fun and fairy tale and imaginary kind of life, right? Because life is heavy enough all by itself.
What about people who say, though, that the cartoons should evolve, that they should change to meet now some of the issues going around in society where people are saying, you know what, for a long time women were oppressed, now women are coming out, you have the Me Too movement now, very self-empowered movement. What about people who say, well, it would be great if these cartoons reflected that so that young girls, very young, would learn that they don't need a Prince Charming to come rescue them?
Well, again, kind of alluding back to what you said earlier, you still watch those shows and manage to grow up to be a very strong, confident, and intelligent woman, right? Again, I am my daughter's role model, not Belle, as much as I love Belle and the Beauty and the Beast, right? And of course, we get that companies want to stay relevant, they want to be able to evolve, but I would suggest that Disney step a little bit further outside of their hyper-liberal bubble and begin to take a look at the fabric of America. There are many mothers who reject the weaponization of the Me Too movement as we've seen it in this past political process. There are many mothers who reject today's form of feminism that says believe the women, irrespective of facts and logic. And so again, I would suggest, I understand we want to evolve, we want to do all of that, but I think even Walt Disney will have a problem with the production that we're getting out of Disney these days.
Yeah, and when you watch these cartoons, what people forget is when your children are watching them, you're often right next to them and they're asking you questions. So I think the point you make about the role of parents actually is lost, and people expect, whether it's a school or whether it's Disney or whoever it is, to do the role of a parent. So it's very important. I'm guessing that, you know, you have kids. I'm guessing that you watch these cartoons.
I parent my own child, right? And I mean, and in fact, in our home, we have now blocked the Disney Channel because we reject the liberal ideology that they're pushing onto our children.
So you actually feel that a lot of this, what they view as evolution, actually for you has been not welcome so much.
It has not been welcome. Like I said, we have actually blocked the Disney Channel because, no, I do not appreciate smart-mouthed little kids running around everywhere trying to usurp the authority of their parents. And I reject this whole feminism and this push of very liberal ideas onto my children. I will parent my children. You entertain them with fun, friendly, imaginary kind of characters, and we can all get along.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.
The left attempted to take down Brett Kavanaugh during his Supreme Court confirmation, but now
the 9 of us are now a family. This is our work family. And it's
absolutely. And you've got a new book that we're going to get to, Bill, for sure. But we want first to get your reaction to Ed's favorite socialist, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from the Bronx. Now, she was elected by challenging a sitting Democratic congressman. A group helped her do that. Well, she got on a conference call with that group and said, we need to do a little bit more of that as well. This is what Ocasio-Cortez had to say.
Long story short, I need you to run for office. Progressive movement works, and it wins in all districts. If we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all 3 chambers of Congress, all 3 chambers of government, We can't start working in 2020. I cannot tell you enough how much this moment is asking of our country and ourselves to have political courage to vote in ways that we haven't voted before.
Chairman of the DNC says future of the Democratic Party. Is that a good idea, Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, well, it's a good idea for conservatives, I think. She's a bit of an outlier. I was just talking to a former member of the Progressive Caucus in the Democrats, saying that Ocasio-Cortez is way out there, and she is. Goodness, it's just 2018, and she's campaigning already. This is really quite something. But fair enough, the party has moved to the left, and a lot of the attention will be on the movement left. But she's an interesting character. You know, her transition from adolescence to adulthood has been being difficult. The demonstration in Nancy Pelosi's office, you know, why have legislation when you can have a demonstration? It's more fun. You meet people, there's a party afterwards, you know. So she's making transition, but she'll continue to attract a lot of attention.
You know, Bill, Justice Sotomayor had some interesting words to say about Justice Kavanaugh. I want you to take a listen, and then I want to get your reaction.
The 9 of us are now a family. And we're a family with each of us our own burdens and our own obligations to others. But this is our work family. And it's just as important as our personal family. We probably spend more time with each other than most justices spend who have spouses with their spouses.
You know, I commend her for this, but wasn't it just a second ago that everyone on the left was trying to ruin Kavanaugh's entire life and reputation?
Yeah, now, to be fair, the court wasn't part of that.
Right.
I remember learning in law school this statement of an ideal statement. The Supreme Court is a teacher in a vital national seminar. They like to think of themselves as teachers in a vital national seminar, and they meet often, seminar-like, and they do come out with their opinions, which are often more august, more majestic than the usual political stuff. However, politics does enter in on the court. As you all know, it just, they don't do it raw. They marinate it, they season it, they bake it. It comes out looking more respectable and intellectual. But fair enough. Look, this is like living in a submarine. These people live in an enclosed space for long periods of time. There's just 9 of them. They have to get along. That's a necessity. Breeds a certain degree of familiarity and affection and comity, I think, by virtue of what the job they have. Remember Scalia and Ginsburg, very close friends all the way through.
That's true.
Bill, I was thinking about you this week, not just because of this new book, The True St. Nicholas, Why He Mattered for Christmas. You can see it right there. And we want to talk about that. But I went to Jack Kemp's family. The late Jack Kemp was kind enough to invite me to the Jack Kemp Foundation dinner. I got to see Jimmy and the whole family. And they had pictures of you and Jack and a very young Bill Bennett meeting with the Dalai Lama, for example. Brought back a lot of wonderful memories. And there was one quote from Jack Kemp that struck me. Winning is like shaving. You got to do it every single day or you look like a bum.
Yeah, that's directed to those of us in the line, you know, who aren't the quarterbacks from California. Do you know when we went to meet the Dalai Lama, I said to Jack, how do I address him? I've never met him. He said, watch me. I said, oh no, it passed through my head. He opened the door and Jack said, hello, Dolly. That was Jack. That's my man. That's my man.
Well, if you would, tell us about the new book, though. It's a great concept, The True St. Nicholas.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. The True St. Nicholas. Yeah, I, like a lot of people, thought the expression St. Nick was just shorthand for Santa Claus. Well, it's shorthand for St. Nicholas, who is the real ancestor, the real progenitor here of what became Santa Claus, who became Santa Claus. He was a bishop of the Catholic Church, born in 280 A.D., very interesting history. Let me tell you one quick story. He inherited some money, and there was a man in town, very poor. He had 3 daughters, and none of the daughters had enough money for a dowry. So he took pity on them, and one night he came and had some gold coins and put them in a bag and threw them through the window. Legend has it they fell in a stocking. Okay, there you go. Back in around 300, he did this for the other 2 daughters as well. The irony is, this guy, this Nicholas, who became Saint Nicholas, Bishop Nicholas, wanted anonymity. Yet he became, ironically, the world's famous gift giver. This is his story from the year 300 up to the 21st century, and it's a great story. He was the most popular saint for quite a while, and he has a lot to teach. It's the story behind Christmas and under Christmas that I think people don't know. It's underappreciated. He's quite a guy.
Wow, well,
really
thank you.
neat.
That sounds fascinating. I love
well timed. The true St. Nicholas, why he mattered to Christmas and why his story is worth knowing now. We covered a lot of books. I don't buy them all. I think I'm going to buy this one.
You better have bought mine.
Sounds like
I bought it.
I'm a Fox News contributor. This is not a book bashing liberals. Come on, give me a
There
break.
you go. That's fantastic.
All
Thanks,
right, Bill. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
We are turning now to your headlines. A hot air balloon packed with fireworks explodes in midair over thousands.
Leftovers?
Yeah, of course. But is a tiny turkey even a thing? Like, is it like a Cornish game turkey?
I've never seen one, so I don't think they exist.
There's a tiny. I'm gonna bring proof of this somehow. Tiny turkeys.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. No, I need like the 20-pounder. All right, guys. Let's talk a little weather out there. A lot going on this week. Obviously, everybody wants to get somewhere on for travel, and it's really going to be pretty good, actually. At least getting to Grandma's house, getting home might be a problem next weekend. Here's your temperatures waking up really cold. We've got some kind of really abnormally cold air that's settled in across parts of the far northern plains. We also have rain coming to California. It's going to be the biggest thing to be thankful for around across parts of California and Oregon, where it has been so incredibly dry and we'll be dealing with those fires. So rain Wednesday, another batch of it on Friday, and I think that stormy pattern sticks with us for a little while, which is some great news. All right, guys, back to you inside.
All right.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
And while you were doing the weather, Rick, I ordered Bill Bennett's book.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Good
but
stuff.
I also listened. All right. Former First Lady Michelle Obama taking a new swipe at President Trump. Her lecture on
book tour now, lecturing about good behavior. Take a look at this. She says the president isn't the president for his own ego. The president is the president for the entire country. We have to be very mindful of what we say and how we say it. You don't stoop to their level. You have to stay above the fray. So that's how we learned to operate. That's one of the ways we existed in the toxic climate that has become, sadly, our politics. So when she was saying the president is not just about ego, was she talking about this president or the last?
Every president, it's so crazy. Every president has a big ego. I can't think of one president that hasn't. And yeah, you have to be mindful of what you say. I think that's a valid point. But every single president that I can think of, I mean, listen, President Obama often said a lot of things that offended a lot of people, wasn't always mindful of what he said. I think the same thing can be said for President Trump. So I don't know if she was taking a swipe at Trump. If she's speaking generally, then I can handle it. If she was taking a swipe at Trump, I think she might be a little misguided.
About the current
Just a tad misguided.
Just kind of, you know, people pay hundreds of dollars, some people thousands of dollars to hear that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here's the other way I'd look at it is if she believes that about President Trump, why is she not also calling out Democrats? To her credit, I'll defend First Lady Michelle Obama in saying that she was consistent about saying previously, when they go low, we go high.
But that wasn't even true.
Hang on a second. Every other Democrat now, Eric Holder, Hillary Clinton, are saying, nah, we want to go low.